I chose to not deal with it because I didn't have to. And you're not used to that. You didn't like that.
But Chrissy, you have to, because that's how family actually gets to.
Listen to me. I don't have to. He has to. That's your son. He has to. I don't have to.
Remember, once you and him get married, and really, as far as I'm concerned, y'all are married.
As long as I was standing in that house and he was coming in 6 and 7 in the morning, talking about this record, that record, and they had a record out in years. What are you working on?
Chrissy. Like that?
I'm talking to you.
Stop pointing at me, Chrissy, for real.
That's who I was talking to. I'm talking to you. Because guess what? We lived in the same house. How have I been selfish and I had done nothing but give? Since the moment I don't give a about the giving.
The room was tense as Chrissy Lampin and Jim Jones locked eyes, and their voices became louder during a heated argument. Friends and family were standing around, looking at each other unsurely, not knowing how to intervene. Jim, who has a short fuse, was losing control quickly, and Chrissy wasn't backing down. "Do you think you can talk to me like that?" With her voice shaking with a mixture of rage and incredulity, Chrissy yelled, "You've crossed a line." Jim became so irate that "You don't get to tell me how to deal with things." With emotion flushed on his cheeks, he barked. He stepped closer, his eyes narrowing, and then, in a startling and unexpected action, he smacked Chrissy across the face. The sound of the slap reverberated throughout the room, and everyone stood in startled silence. As Chrissy stumbled back, her hand reflexively pressed against her cheek, and her bewilderment turned to a flaming anger. "You've lost your mind." Her voice was now filled with a mixture of incredulity and rage, and the atmosphere of the room changed dramatically as everyone attempted to comprehend the events that had just transpired. Jim's son, who had been quietly watching, came forward and said, "I've had enough, Dad. You can't treat her like that." He said this firmly, "Stay out of this." Jim snapped, but his son's resolve was evident on his face. "No, I won't. You can't just hit her and expect everything to be fine. You're better than this, Dad." As everyone watched the conflict play out, the room hummed with tension. Jim said incredulously, "You think you know how to control my life? I make the rules here. You're making a huge mistake." This was better than standing in dumb silence. "The way you're driving people away isn't the way to handle problems," his son shot back, shaking his head in disdain. And still trembling from the slap, Chrissy moved nearer, and her voice became more steady. "You should now pay attention to him. Jim, this is poisonous, and I will not put up with it." Her tone was stern, supported by her son's encouragement, and it was clear. The heady tension like a knife, Jim's kid gestured to the door. "If you believe this is fine, it might be time for you to go. This isn't the right man." I respect his remarks because they are profound and resonant, and his cheeks became a deeper shade of crimson as a mixture of humiliation and rage welled up inside him. His son remained steadfast, but he growled, "You think you can throw me out of my house?" "Absolutely I can. However, if this is how you treat the people you care about, you're not welcome here and should get. You guys have your stuff together." It was evident that the environment was tense. While everyone held their breath, Jim grappled with the confrontation. His son's remarks seemed to resonate, and for a brief time, Jim wavered between fury and a glimmer of understanding. "If that's how it's going to be, I'll leave with that," Jim said in a low, strained voice as he went out the front door, slamming it behind him. The atmosphere changed as soon as Jim departed, and Chrissy and his son exchanged a smile of relief. "Do you feel good after washing over them?" With a look of worry on his face, his son turned to face Chrissy, who nodded despite her still raw feelings. "He crossed that line, and I simply cannot believe it. It's not just about the slap, it's about everything that came before it." "We need to stand our ground," his son said, shaking his head. "This isn't just about today. It's about what we allow in our lives going forward." Both of them inhaled deeply as the situation's weight settled in. The altercation, it was a reminder. As they sat there in the quiet room, the fact that Jim had been going downhill for some time set in. "I've always cared about him, but I can't let this go on." Chrissy spoke softly yet firmly. Her son nodded. "I won't allow him to treat me or anyone else like this any longer." We need to deal with this as a family. If he's willing to change, maybe there's hope, but if not, we have to protect ourselves." Hope and anxiety were mixed together, and they both knew that it would be difficult but important to confront Jim about his actions. However, hours went by, and the sun started to set, filling the room with a pleasant warmth. "Do you think he will return?" As the evening went on, the relationship between Chrissy and her son deepened. Chrissy remarked with a hint of concern, "I don't know," to which her son thoughtfully replied, "But if he does, we have to be ready. We can't just ignore this. It's time for an honest conversation." The door for change had been opened, and Chrissy and her son were ready to walk through it side by side in a sleek, modern studio filled with a gentle hum of anticipation. Jim Jones sits across from Chrissy. Together, they had faced the tide of toxicity and created a safe space for one another. The road ahead would be challenging, but they were prepared to walk it together, united in their commitment to foster a healthier environment. The camera. For years, I thought I had everything figured out: love, success, and a future with Chrissy. But recently, I learned something that completely destroyed my faith in my wife. His emotions are evident on his face as he leans forward, ready to reveal a startling chapter of his life. Let me get right to the point. After stealing my $7 million, Chrissy Lampin stops to let the words sink in, then locks his eyes on the camera and challenges. He hears me whenever anyone questions his truth. "I worked hard every day to build my profession from the beginning and earn $7 million, so it's no small sum. To learn that the person I trusted the most was planning to harm me is a betrayal I never expected." Jim reclines and shakes his head, disbelieving that it began with such trivial transactions. Money that is absent from accounts, though I initially believed it might have been due to poor investments or poor management. I had to know what was happening, and what I found was like something from a movie. His eyes hardened with a mixture of pain and anger, and I found hidden accounts and transactions that led to places I never agreed to. Chrissy had been moving my money around like it was her own personal piggy bank, and the shock of it hit me like a ton of bricks. After all, we built our lives together, and I thought we were just a team. It seemed as though I was speaking as Jim leaned closer once more, his voice growing more intense as I approached her. He takes a long breath, the agony still raw, but the denial and the explanations were unbelievable to a stranger. This person was my ride-or-die companion, and she was staring me in the eye as if it were all in my head. But I had the proof, the bank records and the documentation, so it was all right. The thing that hurts the most is that I would have given her all I had in order to start a future with her. But she decided to break that trust, despite the fact that love is meant to be about loyalty and honesty. This isn't just about money, it's about respect and the basis of what we were meant to have. I've learned the hard way that sometimes the people closest to you can cause you the most pain. I felt foolish for believing in her, and my frustration boiled over as Jim ran his hand through his hair. It will take time, but I'm not going to let this stop me from picking up the pieces and concentrating on my music and brand. His eyes soften as he considers what lies ahead. "Tell me about myself." One step at a time, I'm regaining my strength with a determined gaze because I've come too far to let one betrayal hold me back. Jim gets ready for whatever comes next. I hope this serves as a reminder to anyone who believes they know their partner. Trust your gut and always be alert because you never know what might be hiding in the shadows. As he leaves, the room is filled with a mix of heartbreak and resiliency, which is a testament to a man who is determined to regain his storytelling and creating a new way ahead. As a result of a mysterious post Chrissy Lampin made on her Instagram story on Friday, September 20th, Jim Jones and his longtime girlfriend are rumored to have broken up. Chrissy wrote, "You and I both know you'll never find someone like me. Good luck trying though. I'll have you replaced by tomorrow." It's unclear what prompted the post, but the couple's relationship has a long and turbulent history. They met almost 20 years ago after an encounter at a. In 2004, Chrissy and Jim joined the cast of Love and Hip Hop New York in Harlem. Although they seem to have a deep affection for one another, It was evident that Jim was hesitant to marry Chrissy. However, in a later season, she proposed to the We Fly High rapper, and he accepted when she got down on one knee. The couple never got married. On December 13, 2019, Chrissy Lampkin and Jim Jones were backstage at Dusa Polo, Barclay C.